A young Heibokturok had just awoken in an ice cave. Confused, the creature emerges from the ice cave. It's a special weather event known as a Warden's Nebula. It rarely happens, and to be born on such a day is quite special. The young creature notices a light in the distance and decides to check it out. But suddenly, she noticed the sky is all bright. It's such a lovely sight. She wished she could stay there forever, but unfortunately the weather event has to stop sometime. But luckily, she can enjoy it while it's there. Her scales shine in this newfound light. She roars in glory as this weather event has made her so happy. Everything's beautiful. She couldn't want anything more. But unfortunately, everything comes to an end as the weather event had now turned to day. But for some reason it seemed like the Warden's Nebula was there, although the weather had completely changed. She was lucky she still had something cool to look at, even though the event was over. Now this youngling decides to set off in search of food and water and a shelter to live. These creatures are great climbers, though mistakes are made, and especially with youngers. They still haven't got all the experience they need yet. She climbs and finally succeeds. Can these creatures climb upside down too? She continues up to the icy mountain, determined to make it to the top. She finally makes it to a small ledge on which she jumps from to continue her journey to the top. The day was bright and fluorescent, people could say. As the sun shone proudly, she finally made it to the top of the mountain. She had a great view on the area, but she wanted to continue. The creature was definitely afraid of getting hurt, but she showed no fear as she still climbed up the fearless mountain. She finally made it to the top of the second one. When she made it to the top, she still wasn't satisfied and continued, just to realize there was no way of continuing. One of the Mora suddenly attacked her. Their defense mechanism was to jump and go lower, though being young and curious meant she would continue climbing up. This young creature continues to use her defense mechanism. We'll call her Firework for her curiousness and how high she can jump. Firework wanted to see what was going on, as there was a bunch of flying creatures. She always wished she could fly, but she also was very satisfied with her climbing features, as not many creatures can do what she can. She stumbled across an Orpaheligon. She was friendly, but she didn't know if it was friendly. But luckily it didn't attack her, so seemed like it was friendly to her. Her and the creature were together for a second, until the Orpaheligon decided it had other plans. So it flew off, and there she was, left to go to the next mountain. She jumped down and fell, but luckily these creatures have strong feet. So she climbs up the last mountain. She notices the light again. She remembers how her parents are gone. These creatures usually live in families, packs, but she had nobody. Only herself and the world with her. She had a good scope on the area. She decided that she wants to go to the desert, although it's a very dangerous place, as many creatures go there. But this youngling, being new to the world, did not necessarily know that. Firework continues down the mountain to make it to her possible new home. As long as she survives, she'll grow up to be a strong creature. As the snow made the mountain slippery, she slipped off of her rock. But luckily, she was okay, as again, she has strong feet. So, she continues on to go find a nice home. Her rock climbing skills usually come in handy, except for when she uses all her energy. This can be terrible, As she struggles to get up the mountainside, she notices that, well, she's lost a lot of her energy. But luckily, her struggles come to an end, and she makes it to a beautiful, bright sky. This makes her have hope. She decides to continue onwards to find her forever home, or maybe just a home to stay at for a while. She peers down the mountainside and notices a great meat. She decides that it would be for the best of her to go retrieve it. As she climbs down the fierce mountain, she makes it down. She jumps, but unfortunately falls over the edge. But she easily climbs back up with her rock climbing skills. She eats her meal graciously, as you never know when your next meal will be. And as she eats, it starts flooding. Thunderstorming, somebody could say. As the water levels rise fast, she suddenly finds herself in a death pit, struggling to climb to the top. But luckily, she makes it. But in jumping, she almost falls. She does this a few times and loses a lot of her energy. And then she falls. She finds herself overlapping a rock, struggling to find a way to get back up. This can be dangerous for her, as it's easy to drown for her species. They're made for climbing, not swimming. As she uses all of her energy that she has left, she still finds herself under a rock. She feels as though this is the end and struggles. She still has hope and tries to climb as best she can. She makes it to a ledge just for it to get topped on with water. But as she makes it to the mountain, she uses her last energy to jump and makes it on top of the mountain. She continues to go higher as she doesn't know how high this flood will become. She suddenly jumps, but as she makes it back on, she knows everything will be okay. She makes it to the top and knows all she can do is rest in the rain. She peers down one last time to get a good scope, then rests. She's tired from using her energy and decides to sleep until the rain has gone away. But at last, as the rain slowly slows and the currents go down, she can finally awaken. As the young creature finally awakes, there's no more rain droplets going onto her back. She notices that all the water has finally gone down. She decides it is finally a time for her to arrive on land once again. As she makes it down the steep cliff, she realizes she's very hungry and decides to go and search for home and food. But now she doesn't think she wants to even see water anymore. So instead, she just decides to leave. Her long and exhausting story takes time. And, well, although we're speeding it up here, this took long of time. But as she finally approaches her destination, she notices it might not be as safe as she thought. This is the first time she notices that danger exists. It's not all fun and games. She even thought this during the flash flood, but now it's confirmed. She struggled to get on a rock, but she figures that it wouldn't matter. There's much meat laying around, rotting. She suddenly falls, and that's dangerous for her. She makes it on some other rocks. As she climbs up a steep pillar, she realizes that this could be a nice shelter when it's not raining or any other natural disasters. This youngling lived like this for a long time. But she always never veered far from home. But occasionally she would go explore, like this. A few years passed, and Firework is now a teen. Firework, who is now older, decides that it's time for her to get food, as she's hungry. She peers out at her lands, the same creature still living there. She notices other creatures who are very unsafe. She figures it should be fine as long as she stays on her rock. She's a better climber than anybody else, and she knows that. She decides to go down to get something, but she knows she has to play safe about it. She sees a small creature who disappears, but as she comes up to a delicious meat, she figures it's rotten. So she looks around for other meals as she's starving. She is now a teen, which means she can go upside down completely. So she decides to stay like this to look around for prey. She figures that there's nothing for her to get, so she comes down and accidentally falls into the water. This can be very dangerous for her, but luckily, this means she gets water. She was not only starving, but also dying of thirst. So luckily, our not-so-youngling Firework got a nice cold drink. She decides it would also be for the better if she gets a bite. But all the creatures she saw were too small for her. She also fell another time on accident. But luckily none of the creatures noticed or cared. She tries to make it back up the rock, in which she fails. But for the second time, she succeeds. She notices a not-so-rotten chunk of food next to the rotten chunk of food. She be sure to only eat the not-rotting chunks. She looks around to make sure she's safe. She doesn't want to potentially have a predator on her tail. As she finishes up her last chunks, she decides that she should leave in search of better food sources. She mainly eats like this, scavenges around, and doesn't do much other. She also prefers to sleep upside down, as it makes a much better sleeping place than where predators can get her. She decides to sleep for the night by the waterfall. The water on one of her sides soothes her, but she decides it would be for the best if she slept without it tonight. She looks around for a second, then decides she's bored. So apparently, she goes off to cause mischief. The next night, the young creature is sleeping, but what she doesn't notice is that creatures just like her has arrived. Could these possibly be her long-lost parents? Or just some random Heibokturok? Firework sleeps, not even noticing them. But eventually she has to, right? But suddenly, one of the Heibokturok was attacked by a bioluminescent creature. The Heibokturok goes into the water, although it's not their strong suit. They hide behind the Hellion Warden, mainly in hopes of protection. Luckily, the bioluminescent creature fends off, and the light of day wakes up Firework. She might finally notice the other creatures of her kind. She decides to come down and check it out. She doesn't feel safe mostly, or most of the time, but as she smells her own kind, she feels a lot more safer. She decides to cross this bridge, but luckily succeeds. Then she looks down. She notices that there's two of her kind. She's very excited and decides to go say hi. Though these creatures are aggressive to one another, as long as they're kind to each other, everything should be just alright. She prepares to jump down, and when she finally jumps, she kind of bonks her head. But that's alright. Her newfound kind are extremely kind to her, and even invite them to their pack. Now that she has protection from her possible parents, she now can feel safer in the oasis. But as she turns to look, she smells death just before it's too late and one of her parents are gone. Although disheartened, she also notices her other parent, getting attacked by a pink Mijusuma, but luckily her other parent uses its climbing skills to climb up. When she makes it on top with her parent, she notices her other parent has gone a lot higher than she thought. Maybe being an adult would mean her skills would only get better, which is what she was hoping, but nothing could guarantee that. When she noticed the purple Majusuma, she was terrified and missed her only climbing jump. She was unsure of what to do as she was still young. She jumps around everywhere, clueless and scared. The only thing she can do is hope that her last parent is gonna survive this. Another member of her pack, a fixlet, smaller flyer creature. But she doesn't normally talk to other creatures that aren't her kind, or even interact with them. She rests to gain her energy. The pink creature is getting attacked by the fixlet. Maybe the fixlet isn't so bad after all. It just had risked its life to sacrifice for what this pink Mijusuma has done wrong. For all Firework knows, the pink Mijusuma could have killed her dad. But now that's all remaining is her mother and this random fixlet. She's hopeful, so she decides to keep her hope. A few years later, our young Firework has now become an adult. Our now older Firework explores her environment. Her adult stage has caused her to be much more confident. Her mother's still alive and exploring. She has an irrational fear of the bioluminescent creatures, as she knows it's teamed up with the pink Mijusuma, even if it's not the same one. She decides it would be nice to build herself a nest, but maybe that should wait for a while. But that spot, she will keep in the back of her mind for a long time. So, she continues looking for food, water, etc. Although older, Firework is still silly and says hi to a boreal warden. Though the creature probably demised her, she still said hi anyways. She's just kind, though a lot of creatures aren't. The pink Mujusuma has a stare down with the boreal warden. Though every creature is tense, the battle hasn't even begun. A battle commences. As the Holoran had just fled throughout the desert. She wasn't scared of it though, as the boreal warden appears to be attacking something. Does it want to start a fight? Or is it's attacking the Magnothosauruses. These creatures are the biggest aquatics. Not to be messed with, but this boreal warden shows no fear. The pink Mijusuma gets angry. It appears they have a talk that they probably shouldn't be fighting with those Magnothosauruses. The boreal warden doesn't seem to care, but the pink Mijusuma is serious about it. Could the pink Mijusuma actually care about others? This was hard for Firework to believe. After a month or two, the creature decides it's time to build a nest, so she climbs up on a long pillar. She struggles, but finally she climbs on and decides she should build a nest at the top, as it's safe. She remembers the old time from when she was a baby and first coming onto this pillar. That was a really long time ago, and she's really glad to still be here. Though she needs to be careful, even though she's older now. Her nest is finally built. She's super proud of it and thinks it's great. But she realizes her stomach is growling. Over all the excitement of building a new nest, she forgot about her hunger. She decides to go gather food. Her immense pain of hunger finally flushed in. She came out in the open, but figured maybe it would be fine if I'm fast about it. I am a large carnivore after all, so she quickly ate her fill. As she finished her meal, she decides to go back to her nest, though this mistake of going out in the open as her species would haunt her forever. As she tries to be as fast as possible going back, she notices footsteps. She can hear them miles away. So she's about to make it to her pillar. The large Paraluxian catches up to her. As she tries her best to climb onto the pillar, she's running out of energy, and she knows this could very much be the end. So she has to be very careful about what she does during this. She decides to go up to her pillar. She notices her nest is there still, so she figures maybe the Paraluxian will give her pity about the nest. But unfortunately, it appears that this Paraluxian is starving, so she tries her hardest to get back up onto the nest, but the Paraluxian won't give in. But suddenly she falls. Being on low energy already wouldn't help the situation, so she runs energyless. She gets attacked, and well, she gets picked up and bit and scratched, but it's over for her. She climbs the best she could, but it's too late. Hello, thank everybody for watching the video and for liking and subscribing if you have. And I just want to say this took a very long time to edit and to go to Creature as well. But I want to thank you all for watching today's video, and go check out some other ones. Maybe you'll like the ones you see on screen. I'm not sure. Anyways, bye. See you guys.